Hello everyone. Let me turn this down a little bit. Okay. How is everyone doing? Hope you're doing all just well, and I hope you've been having a good time. I know I've been a little bit stressed reading the news, hearing what's happening, everything that's going on in the world. Stressful times, and it's not always easy to handle. Today I want to talk a little bit about money within politics and how that money influences our politics and how corporations and businesses, where they come into play here. So let's go ahead and switch over to my screen. I've got some questions here that you can answer to me in any order you choose, and you can answer as many or as few as you want. I'll go through them all eventually, and as I see them in chat, I will also go through them there. Music lower? I can do that. How is this?
Turn the music down.
I got it. If I need to go lower, just let me know. Okay. So I will be going through some of the different topics here: Citizens United, MMOP, and some other questions. But I guess I'll read them out to you, and just feel free to answer any of them as you wish. So first question we'll have is whether or not you've heard of Citizens United. It's a fairly popular topic nowadays. I think a lot of the candidates are bringing it up during discussions, and it's talked about a lot. The next is MMOP or MOP. I'm not sure how they pronounce this, but that is a local Michigan ballot initiative. There's been a lot of people going around collecting signatures for this. I think it is I fully support this initiative here and really hope that it ends up on the ballot. I'd love to see that. Next we have, if Congress campaigns are if Congress campaigns are funded through corporations, can they still effectively represent the people? Why and how? And then, what issue do you think is most affected by money within our politics? Do you think people would trust government more if we reduced the influence of money in politics? And do you think politicians are more responsive to voters or donors? So, first, let's go over Citizens United. It is a more popular topic nowadays, but I know I did not always know what it was, and there are many people who aren't going to understand what Citizens United is. Citizens United is a Supreme Court case that basically decided to allow companies and corporations to impact... Oh yeah, you're right. Let me move this, move it here for now. I'll bring this over later, but for now we're good there. Okay, thank you, Mbot. So yeah, Citizens United is a decision made by the Supreme Court to allow companies to spend as much money as they want to endorse a certain candidate. What that means is they can spend as much money on advertisements and different things like that. They cannot pay candidates directly, but they can put out videos, they can put out advertisements, they can put out, mailers, they can spend as much money as they want to try and get their chosen candidate to win the election. And the reason that that is so controversial is because companies are not people. The main argument against that is that companies should not have the same representation as people. They are not individuals. They are, organizations. And the government is designed to represent the people, which is us. And there are plenty of people within, organizations, within companies, and they should be represented. But the organizations themselves and the companies should be represented differently. I'm not saying they should have no say, but they need to be treated differently. And we should be able to put limits on certain things. Okay, so Richard Featherly says 1 yes, 2 yes, 3 no, 4 all of them, 5 yes, 6 donors. Okay, so you've heard of both of these. You don't think that Congress people can effectively represent the people if they take corporate money? That makes sense to me. For all of them. Yes. There are definitely a lot. There are some that come to mind, and I'll get to those in a bit. But I'm going to bring over... That didn't work. That's fine. So, these are some topics I wanted to bring up as well alongside these questions. So, if you have any other things that come to mind with these questions, feel free to just put them in chat. I wanted to talk a little bit about these. So, when it comes to Citizens United, like our first question, the massive outside spending of super PAC money distorts representation, right? That's what I was talking a little bit earlier about how, companies, they're not the same as people. They're not individuals. They are groups that have their own interests, and pretty much all the time, when a corporation or a company is putting money into something, there are individuals within that company that are benefiting from those decisions being made. So, politicians spend too much time answering to donors and major funders instead of voters. So I truly think that is the main issue when it comes to large money within politics, right? Because if you have a congressman or a congresswoman who is getting donations from a massive corporation, those politicians are going to be putting their time into trying to make sure that that corporation and that company is benefited in turn, right? Favor for favor. If you help me, I'll help you. And that's not what we want. We want politicians to be representing us, the people, the individuals who have to live our lives and, get by on what we have. So there is an initiative to get rid of Citizens United. What that looks like right now is overturning Citizens United with an amendment. Now, a constitutional amendment requires a supermajority, which is 2/3 of Congress. So while it is very difficult, it is still very doable, And if we are voting people into office that are more likely to, you know, to vote in favor of this, like, we, the people, have the power to vote in individuals that we choose. And if we all believe that this is something that's important to us, overturning Citizens United, then we can vote people in that will make this happen. And I think, making sure people are in favor of this before voting, I think that's a great first step in moving towards removing money from power. Now, another issue, in my opinion, is congressional stock trading. And this, to me, is another source of basically blatant corruption, right? If people in Congress are making decisions and then benefiting, gaining a personal profit off of those same decisions, that how are we to assume that those people in Congress are making decisions to benefit us when there's clearly a personal incentive for them to make the choices in which they do? I think it's silly to think that there's not, an outside influence with being able to trade stocks. Okay. So, number 2 here, lobbying and special interest influence. That kind of matches up with my 5th question here. Or sorry, my 4th question. So the issues that I think of when I think of being affected by money in politics, I have a very close connection to renewable energy and, electric vehicles. I think that they are very cool. I think they're, the energy of the future and the technology of the future. I think it's where we will be in 10, 20 years. It's where our path is taking us right now. And we see other countries already on this path, towards clean energy, towards fully electrifying their systems. And I would love to see us follow suit of these companies, because I don't like how much we've been stagnating right now with being stuck with oil, gas, and coal. And that's mostly due to lobbying and special interest influence, right? A lot of politicians right now get a lot of money for their campaigns from oil companies and from natural gas companies. There's a ton of money getting fueled into our government to ensure that oil, gas, and fossil fuels stay around for as long as possible. Because there's a lot of people in power right now that make a lot of money off of that. And so that is not going to change unless we, force the change to happen. And I think removing that, removing the ability for these corporations to lobby and to influence our politicians, right? Because these large industries and powerful organizations have constant access to lawmakers, which I don't know about you if anyone else lives in the 1st District. I have never spoken to our representative in Congress, Jack Bergman. I've never heard his voice in person. I've never seen his face in person. And to think that these companies and corporations have more access to our lawmakers than we do as people, of course they're going to be working for the companies and corporations that fund their campaigns. Of course it's going to be hard for us to move our country forward when we have these outside influences slowing us down and holding us back. So, I already talked about stock trading, evolving door politics. So this is kind of talking about how members of government and staff tend to move into the lobbying or corporate advisory roles. So they, get power, get money from these outside interests, and then when they retire, they become the outside interests. And so it's just like a constant cycle. And let's see here. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. I'll talk about number 3 a little bit too. So I briefly touched on it throughout, but specifically, if someone running for Congress, their campaign is funded through corporations, it's possible that they can ignore, the corporation. I admit it's possible, but it's highly unlikely, especially because when most of these corporations are offering to donate, offering to fund their campaign, there's a good chance that they're making, deals out of it. Agreeing to promote fossil fuels if they spend a bunch of money on your campaign, for instance. We saw that a lot in the Trump campaign. There's a reason he was saying drill baby drill at most of his rallies. It's because fossil fuel industries paid for his campaign. They spent a lot of money. They didn't pay entirely, but they spent a lot of money campaigning for Donald Trump, right? And that happens with a lot of politicians. And right now you can find out who's paid for by who, but it is not easy. It is not simple. There's no simple website you can look at and see who the top donors are. I would love to see that happen, but not yet. Maybe in the future we can have a much simpler system to see who donates to who. I personally took that on myself, and I have a transparency page on my website where you can see, how much I'm getting in donations. And I'm not going to list names for individuals, but, they are donations from individuals. They're not corporate donations. And if they were, I would say from who and how much. Let's talk about trust in our government, because I think that is an issue that has become very common right now. A lot of people my age that I talk to, their number one issue isn't necessarily what the government's doing. It's not a specific policy. It is that they don't feel they can trust our government, right? They don't feel like they can trust our government to handle our tax money efficiently, that they can handle our tax money responsibly. They feel as though the government is untrustworthy, which it is. It truly is. We are spending trillions of dollars, and a lot of that is being used very well. It is being used for systems that we all use and love. And then there's plenty of money that is being used for things that a majority of us don't agree on. But there are companies that are lobbying to ensure it stays that way. I had a video about the tax system and that it's complicated on purpose. That's because H&R Block, TurboTax, other companies are lobbying to ensure the system stays complicated so that we continue to spend money so that they make money, and it's just a constant cycle. And that's not going to change until we put people into power that aren't going to take money from massive corporations. They aren't going to take money from, just anyone. We have to use our vote and ensure that doesn't happen. So, right now, politicians are more responsive to donors, and especially if you have large donors. It's easy to see how people are voting compared to where they're getting donations from. And you can see very clearly with people like Zoran Mamdani, right? He had a major individual-based donation group, right? Such a large amount of his donations were from individuals, from people, just regular people. And his policies are very people-focused. And that it's very clear to see. His policies aren't focused on companies. They're not saying, oh, we're going to help the companies so that they can help you, because we all know that doesn't happen. The trickle-down economics doesn't work. It's a failed system. It was never meant to work how they said it would. It was always meant so that the rich could get more rich and the powerful could get more power. So, and I think this topic is really important for a few reasons. Firstly, it needs to be the first thing we deal with, because as long as there are outside interests influencing our lawmakers, we're not going to be able to get things done. So this has to be the first thing we work on. And if I'm elected into Congress, this will be the first thing I try to change. And right now, Michigan and other states as well, I think, was it Montana, also has their own initiative to try and remove, money from politics. And I think if we, that is what we should be doing. We should be trying to remove it on a nationwide level, but at the same time, we should be trying to, solve this problem on a statewide level. Because I think it's very important to remove this influence. We want our lawmakers, making decisions on our behalf, on behalf of the people. And yeah, so that it has to be the first thing that we do, because any change following that will be made 10 times easier or 10 times harder based off of this right here. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the chat? I know we've been talking for a little bit, but if there are any questions, feel free to let me know. This is a subject that I'm very passionate about, and if there's anything I missed or anything you want brought up, feel free to comment in the chat, or even comment if you're watching this on video, or reach out to me on social media. I am available in many different ways. So, guess we didn't talk about number 5 very much, right? Because it does affect our lives. It's not abstract. Drug prices, wages, housing, infrastructure, public trust, we talked about that a little bit. And these are things that we feel every day. If you have a prescription drug, those drug prices are directly affected by those drug companies being able to impact the laws that are being made. There's a reason the drug prices are so expensive in the United States right now. It's because, the whole reason is because, the companies can affect how we make laws. Gosh. Apologies. Okay. Now you can read most of it. So yeah. I mean, it affects our lives in a lot of ways that we don't understand too, or that we don't realize. Because wages, right now, the cost of living compared to our wages, our salaries, is a lot more different, right? Our wages are a lot lower, and the cost of living is a lot higher than it has been in the past, on a comparative scale. And that's just another thing that's impacted by companies having influence on our politicians. Okay. Well, if there are no other comments or questions, I think that is about all I had. Feel free to think on these questions more and message me them in social media or email or however you wish. It was lovely having you here. Glad you all joined, and I will be here again in 2 weeks with another subject to talk about. So,